This is Currents. I'm Ed Wilkinson. Liz Fabulous has the day off. Tonight we begin with Pope Francis and the little flower from a saint. The Holy Father believes he has received a white rose from Saint Therese as a sign on the day after he led the world in praying for peace in Syria. Saint Therese of Lisieux is also known as the little flower. During the September 7th prayer vigil in St. Peter's Square, several passages written by the saint were read. Now, an Italian archbishop, with the Pope's authorization, is telling the story of what happened the next day, Sunday, September 8th. The Holy Father was taking a stroll in the Vatican gardens where there is a statue of the saint. Then, out of the blue, a gardener handed him a freshly picked white rose. The archbishop says Francis sees this flower as a sign, a message from Saint Therese, to whom he had turned in a moment of worry the day before. When he was Cardinal of Buenos Aires, the Pope granted an interview that served as the basis of a book titled The Jesuit, and in it the authors recount being in the Cardinal's library, where on a shelf stood a vase filled with white roses and a picture of Saint Therese. Francis said to them, "Whenever I have a problem, I ask the saint not to solve it, but to take it into her hands and to help me accept it, and I almost always receive a white rose as a sign." Currents has reported extensively that immediately after the Pope's prayer vigil and the Holy Father's direct message to Vladimir Putin, the Russian leader launched a peace initiative that has so far thwarted a threatened U.S. military attack on Syria. A crisis summit is underway tonight in Lebanon as the fate of 40 nuns and orphans hangs in the balance. The children and the sisters are trapped inside a convent caught in the crossfire of the Al-Qaeda Syrian war. Catholic and Orthodox Christian leaders from throughout the Middle East are meeting desperately trying to come up with a rescue plan. The nuns' home is in the ancient Christian village of Malula. They are without water or electricity and almost out of food. They are pinned down by snipers perched in the mountains above. In the middle of the summit meeting in Lebanon, Greek Orthodox Patriarch John X broke away. He has arrived at the Vatican to meet with Pope Francis, and we are told that in addition to discussing Malula, they talked about the Patriarch's brother, who is one of the two archbishops kidnapped last April by Al-Qaeda in Syria. The whereabouts and physical conditions of the archbishops remain unknown. Then, in a dramatic moment, the Holy Father and the Patriarch prayed together for an end to the pain and suffering of Christians in Syria and for each other. Then they bid farewell. The nuns in Malula are, like the Patriarch, Greek Orthodox. Rescue efforts by the International Red Cross and the neighboring villages have failed because of the Al-Qaeda snipers. The Vicar General of the Diocese of Brooklyn, Bishop Raymond Geppetto, says what's happening in Malula is just one example of the war on Christianity.
There are missionaries being attacked, bringing the gospel message in mission lands, and they're constantly attacked. Priests and sisters and lay people who are out there preaching the gospel. And it's a very, very sad thing to see in our world, but we have to keep preaching the message of peace and preaching the message of nonviolence and preaching the message that Jesus taught us to preach.
For Catholics in one Philippines city, there is no peace. For 19 days, Al-Qaeda rebels have been fighting the Philippine military in Zamboanga. The terrorists are staging a revolt. They want to break away from the central government and set up a hardline Islamic state. The president of the Philippines is on the scene as his army battles to put down the revolution. The latest official death count shows that 173 people have perished. Now, all week, Currents has been reporting that an enormous humanitarian crisis is also developing in Zamboanga. Well over 100,000 people have been forced from their homes by the fighting. Many of them are in the city's sports stadium, sleeping in the bleachers. The UN fears for the health of the children and women who are now refugees in their own land. Zamboanga is located on the Philippines island of Mindanao. Out of the terror and violence that is afflicting the religiously diverse city, there is also a dream rising. A documentary titled Rise and Dream tells about a band of teenagers, and they're determined to stage a concert in celebration of peace. Earlier today, one of the film's teenagers and the executive producer visited Currents to share their story. First, though, I asked filmmaker Paul Pierce for an update on the latest news from Zamboanga.
We're getting reports directly from our field staff, who are all Filipinos from that area. We're working with about 4,000 families in our program, and they are in the middle of all of these neighborhoods that have encountered this violence. So tremendous displacement of families. Our families are among those displaced, and families within the film that we're touring with are actually in some of these evacuation centers. Some of the students that worked with Ryan here on the film are actually serving in those evacuation centers. Zarina is a nurse that graduated from our program. So we've also heard reports of over 10,000 homes that have been burned. Some of the families we work with have lost their homes to this fighting.
Now, this is an Islamic terrorist group that's in there, and but it's a long-standing conflict that goes way back. Is this a religious war? What's going on there?
Yeah, I think it's I think it probably goes beyond actually purely religious differences. I think it involves the control of the economic resources of that region. Mindanao is rich in mining and a lot of other natural resources. And it is a clash of cultures from the north and the south, from eras gone by that people are trying to sort out. Zamboanga City itself, one of the things we found there is that they are actually working with those religious differences beautifully and creating community. But there are elements from outside the area that come in to disrupt the economy and the peace and order situation.
Sure. Ryan, first of all, how is your family? Are they safe?
Yes, they were safe. I communicated them through email, and one of the staff of the CFC in Zamboanga told me that they were okay, and my father is in frontline services in rendering transporting of reliefs and goods.
Now, before you left, did you feel threatened at all, or have you ever seen some of the hostilities and warfare that goes on there, unrest?
No, I heard that when I am in the Manila already. It's one day before the attack.
So out of all of this comes a film the Christian Foundation has been working on.
Right.
It's called Rise and Dream. And how does that fit into what's going on there on a national scene, Paul?
Yeah, well, our program is a very direct and personal, really personal development program and community empowerment program. So we work with individual students like Ryan. Parents over there want the same things that we want for our children. They want to invest in their education. They want to send them to school. So we actually work with all the communities there in the area, Muslim, Christian, Catholic communities. And really what they have in common is they all want their children to prosper. And so we simply try for their economic success, their emotional success, and their cultural success. So arts and culture is at the center of our CFCA program, and that's where kind of the music themes of the movie came out.
And tell us a little bit about the film itself, Rise and Dream. You're in it. You're part of the cast there.
Yes.
What's the central theme of the film?
It's all about kids that love music and living in a poverty and a conflict, that it is not impossible to be united or to have harmonious living with different cultures and religions. So I think music is the best way to be united.
Okay, we're going to take a look at a clip of the film and then we'll come right back, okay?
I'm really excited at this time because the concert is near approaching and it's my first concert.
I'm playing Kulintang. I have to try so that I can do it.
Here in Zamboanga, danger is always there. The terrorism, the bomb threats.
Even though we are unfortunate in terms of money matters, we are still confident and ready to face everything.
You will remember the time that thousands and thousands of people came to hear you perform.
We can do it. We can do it all.
You can do it.
Now, Paul, it looks like there are some less than ideal living conditions there.
Right.
Well, what's it like to take a group of young people from an area like that and tell them that, yeah, you can dream and you could rise above all this? That's what the film's all about, right?
That's right. And you know, what we have found is this level of economics, most of our families are making $3 to $5 per day. That's enough really for the next day's expenses. So with our direct help, it really does create change within that family, that narrow family budget, to be able to choose to keep their children in school. Oftentimes these families are faced with between taking care of a healthcare need and food. And then education oftentimes is cut short. The other thing is the relationship between these young people and their parents. Many of the young people feel the responsibility to stop schooling and start to work to help provide income for their families. So with our direct support through sponsorship, we're able to actually allow them to look ahead in the future and choose that life project, choose the talent, passion that they feel good about, and we simply help them become their partner and help them do that.
We should make the point that a lot of the unrest and unsettlement is really caused by extremists, that the young people in this film are Christians and Muslims.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about how you got along. Did you get along okay with them?
Yes, for me and for all, I can see their smiles when we have our practice during at night, and we made some couple of laughters, and we go together in school at day.
So you get along fine. Well, what is your hope for this film? What do you want Americans to get out of it when they see this thing?
I just want to let know that in our place, that even though we live poor, we are in poverty, that there's people like them help us to have our dreams come true, and especially that the conflicts or the conflicts in religion is not a hindrance for all the human to have joy and to practice peace.
Sure. I think that sums it up. Paul, well, how would you, what would you say about the takeaway of this thing?
Yeah, when we talked to some of the Filipino torchbearers of folk music and philosophy and of the Filipino people, we told them our hope was to present people with a different definition of poverty. And they said, or perhaps a different definition of wealth. And so I think there's something in this film for all of us, especially our young people here in the States, to appreciate the chance to go to school here as well.
Okay, well, good luck with this film. Tonight, I know you're going to be at Mary's Nativity, St. Anne's out in Flushing. Tomorrow, you'll be at St. Francis College in Brooklyn Heights at 6 o'clock, and we hope some of our viewers go to see that. And then on Monday will be the final showing here in New York at the Rose Hill campus of Fordham University. And then you're going back to the Philippines,
Yes,
right?
I do.
Good luck, be
Thank you
safe,
very much.
and much luck with this film.
Thank you,
Yes,
Ed.
thank you.
Okay. Rise and Dream won the title of Best Documentary at John Paul II International Film Festival. Tonight, more good news about the priesthood. For a while, Currents has been reporting on the success Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio has achieved in building up the ranks of young men in Brooklyn and Queens who are preparing to become priests for the diocese. Now we are learning that nationwide, there are more men enrolled in seminaries than in nearly 2 decades. There's been a 16% increase since 1995, with almost 3,700 studying for the priesthood today. On Tuesday, you may have to do some studying about your health insurance, because on October 1st, a key provision of the Obamacare health plan goes into effect. A lot of people don't like what they're hearing about the new law, and others are confused about what's going to happen on Tuesday. So tonight, to help us sort it all out, we turn to Currents correspondent Conrad Adera, and he turned to Fidelis Care. They provide Catholic health services for the people of Brooklyn and Queens and all around New York State.
After all the debate, it's hard to believe Obamacare is finally here. Open enrollment in the Health Benefit Exchange for New York State starts next week. But what does that mean? We've come to the offices of Fidelis Care in Rego Park to find that out, hopefully in terms we can understand. My first question for CEO Father Patrick Frawley was, what is an exchange?
It is a healthcare marketplace coming out of the Affordable Care Act, what people commonly know as Obamacare. And there'll be a period between now through the end of the year where people can enroll in a health plan, and based upon that enrollment will be eligible for coverage starting January 1st. It's a very bold and one of these almost never been done before programs. I think for many people there will not be much change. The employees of Fidelis have health insurance coverage. It's remaining the same. But the big change, in my view, is a real opportunity for people who currently are without health insurance.
Among the insurance companies in the exchange, Fidelis was among the lowest in cost. In this new exchange, how affordable was coverage going to get?
Depending upon income, individuals and families may actually be able to pay a very modest premium, if any at all.
With more than 2.6 million people uninsured in New York State, how much capacity did Fidelis have to key people into the new Obamacare benefits?
But yes, there's 225,000 people in Brooklyn and Queens alone who we've been able to get coverage for health insurance. Fidelis is a health insurance plan that is sponsored by all the bishops of New York State. Its presence and its genesis actually was in the Diocese of Brooklyn. There's a real opportunity now to extend that mission and ministry to so many other people who currently are uninsured. We will have staff in the field, as we do each and every day, helping people to navigate this very difficult healthcare insurance world to make the right choices and to get coverage for themselves and their family. I'll take you down to our call center. This is where, if you're calling your health plan for information, you would call here, and we take probably over 2 million calls a year. And we take calls from members and providers across the state. We do it in 5 or 6 different languages here, and just take tens of thousands of calls each month of people and their inquiries. It won't be a sales pitch as much as knowing for sure, here's what your coverage options are, here's what it will cost, here are the subsidies to which you are entitled, and here's ultimately what the best program for you should be. It is, as we like to say, a new expression of the Catholic healthcare ministry, where we bring the compassion and care of Jesus that we see so much in the gospel to people on the grassroots level.
Thanks to Father Frawley, we now understand the crucial role of Catholic ministry in making sure the benefits of Obamacare reach those who need it in Brooklyn and Queens. Reporting for Currents, I'm Conrad Aderer.
California Democrat Nancy Pelosi once famously said the Obamacare bill would have to pass Congress before we could find out what was in it. Tonight, the politician is in the crosshairs of the cardinal in charge of the Vatican's Supreme Court. Cardinal Raymond Burke, an American, says the House Minority Leader's repeated public support for abortion is a grave sin that means she should not be admitted to Holy Communion. The Cardinal also said that he fears for the Congresswoman's spiritual well-being, and he invites her to reflect upon the example of St. Thomas More, who acted rightly in a similar situation, even at the cost of his life. The leader of the Catholic Church in Brooklyn and Queens is Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio. He's also an internationally recognized expert on the issues of migration, immigration, and refugees. In preparation for the upcoming World Day of Migrants, Pope Francis is calling for new compassion for all people who leave their original homes in search of better lives. The Holy Father says that more people are on the move today than at any other time in human history. The UN puts that number at nearly 250 million. Bishop DiMarzio himself is about to celebrate a very important occasion, the 10th anniversary of his installation as the Bishop of Brooklyn. And in tonight's installment of Into the Deep with Bishop DiMarzio, I reminded him of my first gift. Bishop, nice to see you.
Okay.
Next week, you're going to be celebrating your 10th anniversary as Bishop of Brooklyn. And,
yes.
When you first arrived here, I gave you a roadmap of how to get around the streets of Brooklyn. I think you're learning your way. Well, what do you, as you look back over these 10 years, there's awful lot of things have been done. What would you think are some of the major achievements in 10 years?
Well, I started out with the homily at the installation mass talking about the no evangelization, put out into the deep, and I've tried to keep that that theme. I didn't know how deep I had to go in some of these areas, but you know, we had to deal with our schools. That was the first day, first meeting I had with our finance council of the diocese. Said, "Well, you got to close a lot of schools." I said, "What? I just got here. Well, I have to find out what's going on." So I think we did find a way of keeping schools open, consolidating, making them stronger. That was a major accomplishment. A lot of the work was done by Bishop Caggiano. Then we had to look at the parishes. The parishes themselves needed some change. Thankfully, we didn't have to combine too many parishes or close only 3 churches in this 10 years that were actually closed. There are parishes that have more than one church combined. So that was an accomplishment. I think the other thing is vocations. Really, we really needed a lot of vocations to keep at least pace somehow with the need. You know, when I came, we had 29 seminarians. We now have 63. We ordained, I think, this time about 30. So you can see how it's shifted.
You have a big class coming next year.
We have a big class, 13, coming up next year. That'll help a lot. So it's important that that was a really, I think, an important accomplishment to see how we can look at the future of the church. We need the new evangelization calls for new methods and new evangelizers, and I think the laity also is very important. We've tried to deal with that need of educating and forming the laity because they have to take their place in the new evangelization. So a lot has been accomplished. There's a lot more to be done. We're looking at the future of the structure of the diocese, the infrastructure. I'd say everything is 150 years old. A lot of things. Most of the parishes are celebrating 100th anniversaries since I've come. So we've got a lot of buildings are over 100 years old. Yeah. That means there's a lot of repairs to be done. Some of them were done, some of them were not done because of finances. So we have to look at that thing. If we want to accomplish the new evangelization, we have to accomplish it with some structures. The Pope's telling us get out of the churches, get out into the streets. Well, we got to do that too, but you need a church at the same time. So
one of the driving forces is money, of course.
Money, unfortunately, is the bottom line of
Are we in
most
better
things.
fiscal shape today than we were 10 years ago?
Oh, yes, we are. I think we've had a balanced budget for the last 2 years. Hopefully this year we should be balancing it, but there may be a deficit due to Sandy, something you can't foresee, you know. But so we're trying to get to the point where we're managing our finances better. And a lot of it was because we didn't know what was happening with schools and parishes. They were coming in with deficits at the end of the year, which the diocese had to pick up, so putting the diocese in deficit.
Right.
Now we have a better handle on each individual entity, schools and parishes, so that we don't get surprised at the end of the year and can foresee what is needed in places. We still have to subsidize things in parishes and schools, but it needs it to be done in an orderly fashion, not something that is a surprise.
Well, one of the things is these new parishes have appeared almost like mega parishes. We have new parish names, Divine Mercy Parish, where there used to be 3 parishes, now 1.
Right.
Does that seem to be working?
It seems to be working. There's problems. It's not easy for people to, but again, I'm saying, telling people, you have your churches open. Well, we want more than 1 mass. I said, well, we need more than 1 priest to be able to cover 3 churches with 2 priests and 6 masses. I think that's enough. So it's very difficult for people to accept. They still go back to the same thing, but I think in time people will understand this is what we can do, and that's important to see the limits that are part of life.
So you're optimistic about the future then?
Oh, I think so. I think we've turned a corner, and we still have to keep attentive on all of the area, all the fronts. It's not going to just happen by itself. We need to stay attentive to our budgets, our personnel, our new evangelization. It's always a new challenge. We have so many new groups. We have the 380,000 Chinese. Nobody ever sat down and said, well, look how many people we have in that area. We have the newcomers, for a better term, we call them the hipsters. I mean, they're young people from all over the country coming here, settling in Brooklyn. Rents are cheaper, transportation is here, they have jobs in Manhattan, most of them. Some of them are artists, some of them are people with different talents. We need to find them, who they are. Some of them are Catholics, certainly. We want to attract them, so we've been trying to do that in different ways. So we have a lot of challenges here.
A lot of challenges.
I think we're up to them, but we just got to keep working at it.
Well, thank you for your efforts over these 10 years, and thanks so much for being with us today. This Sunday's edition of our diocesan newspaper, The Tablet, will have a special commemorative section on the bishop's 10 years with us. Be sure to pick up a copy after Mass. You'll enjoy it. And thanks for joining us tonight. We leave you with scenes of the rehearsal for the big concert in the documentary Rise and Dream. For the entire Currents News team, I'm Ed Wilkinson. Have a good night and a great weekend.